Hi, and welcome to Chopra Radio, where we invite you to join the conversation to balance, heal, and transform your life. I am your host, Dallas Brown, and we are so excited to have you here with us today. Today, we will be talking to Bhava Ram. Bhava Ram is a former Network News war correspondent whose career ended due to a broken back and failed surgery. Declared permanently disabled, he was heavily medicated and confined to a body brace. Years later came a diagnosis of stage 4 cancer and the medical prognosis that survival was not possible. On the brink of death, Ram left Western medicine, detoxified from all medications, and found mind-body medicine. Through the sciences of yoga and Ayurveda, Ram healed himself and now devotes his life to helping others reclaim their inherent power to achieve profound self-healing, overcome life's greatest challenges, find their authentic voices, and manifest their fullest potential. Bhava Ram will be joining the Chopra Center for our Weekend Within, Introduction to Meditation, Ayurveda, and Yoga workshop on January 16th through 18th in 2015. He will share the stage with Deepak Chopra and tell more of his incredible story. Today, we are excited to discuss creating opportunities through adversity. Welcome, Bhava Ram. We are so happy to have you here with us. You have had just absolutely a fascinating life journey that began with a career that must have felt at the time like it was your true purpose and calling. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Dallas, I'm very glad to be with you today. And that's exactly right. As a foreign correspondent, and before that, an investigative journalist and a political journalist, I felt completely realized and identified. I loved this work so much because it was fascinating. I was continuously learning. And also I had a way to make an impact, to fight for justice against political corruption and white-collar crime and environmental degradation, and ultimately to show some of the horrors of war by especially focusing on refugee camps and the innocent people that are often victimized in global conflicts.
So in all of the things that you experienced, was there ever a piece of you that felt that it was temporary or uncertain, or that your life would be changing? Did you have any sense of that?
I had no idea that I would go through the changes that I went through. My vision at the time, as my career was growing from local to regional to national to international, was that this was my life, that I would one day retire when I no longer had the energy to work, but I didn't even want to retire. I just wanted to be a broadcast journalist for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. And so you have a broken back, you have a failed surgery, you're permanently disabled. At that point in time, what's going on for you? What are you thinking?
Well, what happened for me in 1986, I was inside Afghanistan with the freedom fighters. I took a rare vacation after that, and I fell during a tropical storm, and I injured the lowest vertebra in my back. But I kept working for 7 years because my career meant so much to me, and I didn't want to lose that seat that I had on this rocket ship of my life because there were so many people ready to take it. So I worked for 7 years through the Gulf War and apartheid in Africa and conflicts in Central America and drug wars in South America with a mildly broken back, chewing painkillers the whole time and drinking a little more heavily every night and just praying that the next day I would get better. But ultimately, 7 years into that, it didn't get better. It cracked wide open and impinged upon my spinal cord, and I had major surgery. It failed. I was declared permanently disabled, and suddenly I went from this global, fulfilling life to being confined to a body brace, and I couldn't even sit up to eat a meal. The pain was excruciating because the surgery had failed, but even more so was the emotional pain. I'd lost my identity. I didn't feel like I had any future, nothing to look forward to. And by now I was on so many powerful medications and drinking even more every night to hide from my despair, that I thought that I would be in an abyss of darkness until I died. And then it got worse.
And then you were diagnosed with cancer.
My only child had just been born. And I thought, well, I do have a life. I do have an identity. I'm a daddy, even if I can't carry him on my shoulders. Excuse me. And shortly after his birth, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer from exposure to depleted uranium in the Persian Gulf War. And my doctor said, you won't live for 2 years. You need to write your will. And here's morphine to go along with the Vicodin and the Valium and the Prozac and the rest of this cornucopia of heavy, heavy pharmaceutical medications that were pickling my brain. And I got even more depressed about that. So much guilt that I was leaving this little boy's life, my only child, just when I felt a glimmer of hope. And I went even further into a downward spiral until his second birthday, just before the year 2000, when he said 3 little words that absolutely woke me up.
And what were those words?
He looked at me. I was lying on the couch where I always did in my body brace, a little woozy, and tears came into his eyes. And I suddenly realized through my fog that he understood something was really wrong with Daddy in a little 2-year-old boy way. And he trembled and he implored me, get up, Daddy. And something cracked open in a place inside of me, deep inside of me, that I didn't even know existed. And this became a loop through my mind, what we would now call a mantra, all through the new year, the dawning of 2000. Get up, Daddy. But how? I have a broken back. I'm dying of cancer. Get up, Daddy. And finally, I decided the only way I could do this was to check into rehab, detox cold turkey off all the medications, 14 years of them now. And one day, hopefully, someone would tell my little boy, your daddy died with dignity. That's the way he chose to get up for you. It was all that he could do.
Wow. So still, even at that point, you weren't thinking, there's another life for me, there's another possibility or a future. You were thinking of another way to die, it sounds like.
I had absolutely no hope, and when I crawled out of that detox ward after 8 to 10 days of very dark nights of the soul, dazed and confused with all these heavy meds still wearing off of me, the doctors came to me and offered me a chance for a very experimental pain clinic. They said they couldn't help me with cancer, but with this clinic, using ancient Eastern healing modalities and modern Western holistic techniques, they felt they could help me manage the pain without going back to drugs and alcohol. And I grabbed at it like a lifeline that was being, tossed down into the abyss for me to hold on to. The very first thing I did at this clinic was biofeedback, where they play you a guided visualization and they hook you up to electrodes and take your vital signs, like your brain waves and your heart rate and your skin temperature and so forth. And at the end of 20 minutes of listening to this, everything changed. I had a completely different taste inside of my body. And I think for the first time in my adult life, I actually truly relaxed and let go. And that was my second awakening after Get Up Daddy. I realized whatever healing is possible for me, that I had to take charge and play a role in that healing. And as I trundled along at this pain center, hardly anybody in it, very small and experimental, a month into it, they said, you're ready for therapeutic yoga. I'd never tried yoga. Cynical, jaded, foreign correspondent, and I just thought all that was hooey. I walked into this yoga room, epiphany number 3, this voice deep in my soul that I'd been starting to hear said, this is it. And that cynical voice said, this is what? I listened to my deeper voice, and I started embracing these practices. I was staying at a nearby hotel. I ordered books on the ancient texts of yoga, and I soon discovered this is an amazing science of how to be a human being. It's not just yoga postures. There is so much more, so much depth and richness. And I started applying it to my life as best as I could. The pain center closed. The insurance companies wouldn't reimburse them. I knew 3 people in the program. 2 went back to drugs and alcohol. My closest friend took his own life. And I went home and built a yoga room in my home. And I started practicing and practicing and practicing. Fasting. I became a vegan instead of my foreign correspondent meat and potatoes diet that had put about 80 or 90 pounds on me because I had been so sedentary in my back brace. Purifications, breath work, yoga postures, of course, and affirmations. And knowing through those affirmations, I was actually changing my inner chemistry from fight and flight to rest and restore and heal. And I was shifting self-pity and anger and fear that I was very good at, shifting that to gratitude and compassion and forgiveness. And I called the veganism and the fasting organic chemotherapy. And at the end of 2 years, 80 pounds off my body, I was healed and whole. And I did carry my little boy on my shoulders in a Christmas parade as I had promised him 2 years earlier here in Coronado where I live. And ever since then, I've devoted my life to helping share this power that we all have deep inside of us to heal to our maximum potential and to turn obstacles in our lives into great opportunities, to find out who we really are at a deeper level, and ultimately to change our lives, to set a new course. And certainly it set a new course for me and gave me a life I never dreamed of. And now that's what I'm fully devoted to. And to me, it's even more rewarding on so many levels than this great global career I once had before.
What a powerful transformation you must have undergone during those 2 years where it sounds like you literally in almost every way became a new person. What was the experience like for your friends and your family watching you undergo this rebirth?
Well, I withdrew a great deal because I really had to focus on my healing because death was imminent from the cancer. And whenever you go through something like this, you'll find that there are people who really support you and want to see you have an opportunity. And there are other people who just don't believe and they have more of a mainstream attitude. And I understand both those attitudes. But I took time a lot to myself. And so I was sort of cloistered. And then when I came out and was a new person, a lot of people that knew me before were quite astonished. Physically, there was a lot less of me. I was much more radiant and happy when I had been negative and difficult to be around before when I was so locked into that anger and fear and self-pity. And now, fully integrated with my friends of the past when I was Brad Willis with NBC News, and now is Bhava Ram, who teaches Ayurveda and yoga and mastery of life and has devoted himself to a new path.
Yeah. So tell us about that name change and when that happened and what that significance is for you.
Well, as I began to grow into this new life, I founded the Deep Yoga School of Healing Arts here in San Diego. And with my new wife, who I met during this journey, we started doing these Mastery of Life trainings, ultimately teaching in India as well as around the United States. And in India, I started to realize the power of Sanskrit as a resonant and ancient language and the power of intention, of setting an intention. So I took the name Bhava Ram, which means pure state of being in the heart. And Dallas, I'm not always there. I don't have any illusions that I am some sort of Swami or that I walk on water. But it's a great intention because it reminds me every day that I always want to move towards a pure state of being in the heart as much as I'm capable of doing. That I've made a permanent change in my life and that I'm never going back, that this is who I am and I'm committed to it. And, you know, some people have also felt a name change is a little bit unusual. And I can understand that too. And my usual answer is, well, everyone from Lady Gaga to the Pope changed their name. So maybe I can too.
That's true, isn't it? That's true. I think, so many people listening to your story are just fascinated by the extremes that your life has taken, and maybe not all of us experience, being in rebel camps in Afghanistan, and being on the news and experiencing cancer and all of these real just extremes of life experience. But so many of us can identify with that feeling of hopelessness and of questioning and of just not being able to see a clear path forward. What have you experienced, or what do you share with people who are in that place?
Well, I think that's so well said, Dallas. I think given our overstimulated culture and the fast pace of our modern lives, that we all have a little bit of PTSD. We all feel this terrible stress in our lives, and we feel unfulfilled and a lack of a connection often with our deeper self. And that causes pain, and that often causes a whole host of negative habits as a result, whether it's addictions or eating problems or over-shopping and things like that. And I have found with the thousands of people I've been honored to serve now in our trainings and in my private healing sessions, that we all come to this for the same reason. We all come to this because we're suffering and we want peace. And what I have found is that the science of yoga offers us a pathway to peace and to self-empowerment, so that we no longer are looking externally for pharmaceutical medication to take our pain, physical or emotional, away, or a distraction to help us just forget about it for a while. But we really, if we take charge of our lives, we can affect a greater sense of peace and a greater sense of connection with who we really are. And through applying that every day, that starts to bring a lasting joy that gets richer and richer and richer as we move forward in our lives.
That's so beautiful. Now, I also feel that many of us are interested in yoga and interested in meditation, and probably listening to this webinar for that very reason, maybe contemplating coming to a Chopra Center event or another workshop, but feel that it's so outside of what they've known and experienced all their lives. So having come from that place of being in, very much in the mainstream, for lack of a better word, and then fully immersing yourself in these healing arts, what would you say to somebody who just wanted to begin exploring and begin opening themselves up to that, and was looking for a way to not have that feel so foreign and so scary?
Well, I'd say take gentle steps. Go forward very slowly. And be willing, have the courage to step outside of some boundaries. Because if we are suffering, there's a reason why, and it's because those boundaries are locking us into a place where we don't feel fulfilled. And I really believe, as esoteric as this science can sometimes sound with Sanskrit words and practices that we might not be used to, it's so pragmatic. And everyday modern science is embracing it more, these thousands of years old practices, realizing the power that they have. And it's very logical and it's very practical. Yoga ultimately means, as you well know, a unifying with your deeper self, with a sense of unity with all that is. And oftentimes I'll begin people with a very simple, guided 8-step meditation that helps take you to that place very shortly and easily, to give you a taste of what this is like. And I'd be happy to share that with you now if you want.
That would be wonderful.
Well, the first step into yoga is to simply close your eyes. And just by closing your eyes, you make a shift from an externalized awareness to your inner space, just noticing that. And with your eyes closed, the second step into yoga is to become the master of your breath. Breathe in deeper and fuller and slower and smoother, always through your nose. a powerful breath that starts down in your belly and flows all the way up through your ribs and side body, all the way up to your heart center. And you exhale from there all the way back down. Remembering that every breath is really a miracle of life. It's an empowerment and an affirmation. And every exhale is a healing and a letting go. And the third step is to feel your body is this great vessel that is always here to support you. Send your breath to all the outer edges and flood all the inner space of your body. And as you continue, the step 4 is to notice how you are totally supported, whether you are standing or sitting or lying down. The earth is holding you. You are completely supported, and you can begin to let go into that support, into that embrace. And step 5, if you just silently chant the mantra, I, on your in-breath, and am on your exhale, the mind begins to still. I am. Step 6 is to bring your awareness down from your mind to a deeper place, what we call the heart center, that place where we have a greater inner wisdom and inner knowing. Visualize you have a candle flame right behind your breastbone and your awareness is going there. And you're sending your breath there, feeling more radiant and illuminated every time it arrives. And step 7 is just to be. Just to be here now, not in the past or the future, but just to be here now, in your body, in your breath, in relationship with the earth, in the light of your heart. I am. And the 8th and final step is to remember that you are filled with power and potential, that you are connected in every way, that you are indigenous wherever you go, and that you always have been and you always will be capable of making amazing changes in your life, turning obstacles into opportunities, charting your own destiny, and manifesting your fullest potential. I am. And just in that simple meditation, we go to this place of inner awareness, Dallas, where we're creating different inner chemistry. From the adrenaline and cortisol of being in stress and in the fight or flight mode, this takes us down to the parasympathetic nervous system, where we start to make things like epinephrine and oxytocin in our bodies. And we come into a state where we're capable of achieving greater homeostasis and balance. Sort of like why an animal crawls into a cave when it's wounded, to hold still and be silent and relax. And this sort of guided visualization or meditation takes us to that same kind of place. And when we enter stillness and awareness, which is the essence of meditation, everything starts to recalibrate. We find an inner wisdom and an inner knowing, and our life begins to change. We're no longer reacting to everything stressfully, and we learn to act skillfully in the face of all circumstances in our lives.
It's so beautiful and such an important reminder for all of us, really, at any time, wherever we are in our lives. You've made some references in our conversation today that lead me to want to ask you what role spirituality has played in your journey. You know, before your illness and transition and into today, you know, are you a spiritual being? Has that been an important part of your journey?
That really is the centerpiece. I was very secular as a journalist, and I had witnessed so much evil in the world that, as I said before, I was cynical and jaded and oftentimes didn't have much faith in humankind. But there were also times in every conflict I was in where I saw people who were incredibly downtrodden being lights of hope for others and finding something inside themselves that none of the rest of the people could find. And as I went through this transformation, I found this voice inside of me to guide me that I ultimately understood was spirit. That this intelligence that is the birthright of all humankind, that our great sages and saints really embody and live in a full way. It's inside each and every one of us. It's encoded in our being, just like an acorn on the forest floor has all the intelligence to grow a mighty oak, to root down into the soil and to reach up to the sky and drink in the sun, branch out and fully express itself. Spirit's within us, and it unites us all. And we know now, even through quantum physics, that we all affect one another, that we are all interwoven and interrelated, and this is part of what spirit really is. And being a spiritual being helps me have humility and compassion and gratitude and acceptance and forgiveness. It helps me move past the state of being overly individuated in my ego, where I think everything in the world is all about me. And then I'm filled with opinions and judgments and differentiations. And I think the essence of spirituality is coming back to the sense of oneness and doing everything we can to bring out the best in ourselves and to see the best in everyone else, and to put the outcomes of all of our efforts as skillfully as we can address those efforts, to put the outcome in the hands of higher power rather than always trying to force outcomes in our lives, which leads us back into over self-identification and stress.
So would it be fair to say that you feel that yoga and meditation have been your tools to get in touch with and remember your own spirituality and turn those obstacles into opportunities?
Absolutely. I still get up every morning. It's been over 10 years now, 12 years before the sunrise, and I do my practice. And it's some breathing, some posture work, some meditation and affirmation, and a reminder that I always want to find the best in myself and bring that out and to see the best in everyone else. I liken it to brushing our teeth. You know, we do that every day. It's a practice. It has changed our destiny in terms of our oral hygiene. And when we were younger, our parents had to scold us to get us to do it, and we resisted. But now we can't help ourselves. It's part of our nature. And that has changed, again, our destiny in terms of our oral hygiene. And I believe in spirituality, we need to visit it ritualistically in a way that makes sense to us and is logical to us every day, just like we brush our teeth every day. We need to visit it and reaffirm it because it does change our inner chemistry. And when we're thinking about bringing out the best in ourselves, we are creating thoughts that affect our actions, that change our habit patterns, form our character in a different way, and through that, alter our destiny.
Absolutely. Those small decisions and choices made every day over time can completely recreate our lives.
Yes, because whatever thoughts we anchor into, the whole world's going to rise up to support that. And if we're listening to hate radio and hate television all day long and angry about everything and disliking people, we're going to get that. That's what the world's going to show us. But if we make a shift and we anchor into positive thoughts and really a devotion to positive actions, the whole world will rise up to support that as well.
What a beautiful idea. I completely agree. Now we have a few questions that have been submitted by our audience in the past days and week that I would love to share with you here. We have one caller that wanted to know what has surprised you the most on your journey, or what continues to surprise you.
The power of the human spirit. I have seen so many people come through our trainings to embrace these deeper practices and affect unbelievable transformations in their lives, especially those who were the most dedicated and approached it with some sense of self-discipline, but never forcing it. I've seen people perform miracles in their life and go from being depressed and physically and emotionally challenged individuals to being radiant souls that have been inspirational to others. And every time I see it happen, it just, in a positive way, it surprises me because it reminds me again what's possible for human beings, what our potential really is, and it brings me incredible joy.
Someone else wants to know, they feel stuck, and they want to know what they can start doing today to start transforming their circumstance.
Well, I would ask them to close their eyes and do the quick 8 steps into yoga of being aware of the body and the breath, the support of the earth, the I am mantra, and consciousness in the light of their hearts, and then to ask themselves in that deeper state of contemplation, what positive emotion do I most need right now to help me get unstuck and to move forward? And I guarantee you, they will hear a whisper immediately from their deeper self. It might be courage or faith or compassion or forgiveness, power or peace. And then to ask, what's one very doable, gentle, easy step I can begin taking right now that moves me gently in that direction? And then use that positive emotion to affirm taking those gentle steps, something very easy, so that you have a small victory. Because oftentimes when we feel stuck, we try to do too much to get out of it, and we let ourselves down, and there goes our self-esteem, and we feel even more stuck. So rather than set ourselves up for a big defeat by trying to transform everything at once, take baby steps, get little victories, and they begin to build upon one another, and you become more and more capable of larger and larger victories. And one day you wake up and you realize, I'm not stuck anymore.
Another question. While you were going through your transition, who did you look up to, or what archetype do you identify with?
Well, the archetype that I identified with from the yoga tradition was Shiva. All of these archetypes aren't, real deities in the way that I believe the science works, but they're archetypes of us and all humankind. And Shiva is this archetype of the great destroyer. Shiva comes in and just destroys everything in your life so that you have no choice but to begin to transform yourself. And, Shiva came in and said, okay, Bhava Ram, here's a broken back. And here's the loss of the greatest career you ever dreamed of having. And here's a failed back surgery. Are you awake yet? No? Okay. Here's stage 4 cancer right after the birth of your little boy. Are you awake yet? And finally, Shiva came to me in the form of that tender little boy and said, get up, Daddy. And I said, okay, I'm awake. I get it, finally. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, Shiva.
Sure. It seems that those messages had to come in pretty loud and forcefully to get the needed message across.
And I have looked up to Dr. David Frowley, who's associated with the Chopra Center. I've done his American Institute of Vedic Studies advanced trainings now in yoga and Ayurveda. And very early in my journey, when I was still in what I called my Himalayan cave here in the yoga room I built in my house to heal, I heard of this person that sounded at the time very exotic, who happened to live about 25 miles away from me, who was said to be somebody who really embodied this wisdom of yoga, and his name was Deepak Chopra. And I became so curious, and then I began to buy a few books by this person named Deepak Chopra. And the books were so profound and yet so tangible and easy, 10 steps to this, 8 steps to that. And that really resonated with me as well. And although I have never met him, in the coming weekend that we have in January, I believe I will, I'm so honored now to be invited to be part of what the Chopra Center does. It's absolutely amazing to me. It's like coming full circle.
It's wonderful to hear. We are just so excited to have you with us for one of our really most unique events. Our Weekend Within experiences really one of my favorite events because it is so accessible and it's such a rich introduction to learning all of these teachings, whether somebody's been meditating and doing yoga and practicing for 10 years or if they've never done any of this but they're curious. It's really a wonderful thing to be able to come to San Diego and Carlsbad, and it's such a beautiful location, and to learn to meditate, from Deepak, and to, learn from the wisdom and just the amazing life experiences of people like yourself. So it is certainly very exciting, and how wonderful that you and Deepak were both living in this San Diego area and developing, at the same time, and refining your message and becoming more purposeful in your work, and now we're able to come together in January. It's going to be a very powerful experience.
I so look forward to it, Dallas.
Wonderful. Well, Bhava Ram, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your journey and your wisdom. I know how inspiring it is to me, and I know that our listeners feel the same way. So thank you very much. And we really look forward to seeing you at the Chopra Center in January.
Thank you very much as well.